You know when you're at the grocery store and you just flip over a box to check the nutritional label, you see calories, sugar, fat, it's all right there, super straightforward. But what if? What if you could do that for a whole company? What if there was a nutritional label, but for sustainability, so you could see what's really inside?
I mean, we hear that word sustainability thrown around all the time. But let's be honest, it can feel kind of vague, right? It's this giant, fuzzy concept. How are you supposed to know what it actually means when you're buying something? Well, believe it or not, there's a framework out there trying to fix exactly that problem.
Okay, so let's get into it. Meet the SASB standards. Think of them as the people writing that nutritional label for companies. Their whole goal is to create a standardized way for businesses to report on their sustainability, which gives investors and, hey, eventually all of us a much, much clearer picture of what's going on.
All right, so what are these standards really? Well, think of them as a way to cut through all the marketing fluff. They focus on what's called financially material. And that's just a fancy way of saying they zero in on the sustainability issues that can actually impact a company's bottom line.
And here's the really smart part. This isn't a one-size-fits-all deal. Nope, there are 77 different standards, one for each specific industry. And that makes total sense, right? I mean, the sustainability issues for a tech company are going to be worlds away from the challenges facing a company that, makes shampoo.
So each of these standards follows the same basic blueprint. It's a 5-step process. They start by defining the industry, then they figure out the most important topics to talk about, and then, and this is the magic right here, they create specific metrics to actually measure how a company is doing. It's like a recipe for getting real, comparable information.
Okay, so to make this whole thing less abstract, let's zoom in on one industry that we all know really well: household and products. Yeah, we're talking about stuff that's probably in your bathroom or under your kitchen sink as we speak. It's the perfect way to see how this works in the real world.
Yep, exactly what it sounds like. We're talking cosmetics, soaps, all those cleaning supplies, even paper products. Basically, the companies that make all the stuff we use every single day to keep ourselves and our homes clean.
So, for an industry like this, what's a major sustainability risk? Well, one of the absolute biggest is the use of potentially harmful chemicals. We're talking about ingredients that have started to raise some serious red flags for both our health and the planet.
And the Standmans don't mess around. They get super specific. They call out chemicals of concern by name. Things like formaldehyde, phthalates, parabens, you've probably heard of some of these, and of course those little plastic microbeads. These are the exact ingredients that everyone, from governments to the stores you shop at, is starting to look at a lot more closely.
Okay, so we know these chemicals are a potential problem, but how do you actually measure that? How do you turn "they use this stuff" into a real number you can track? How do you measure a company's risk and, the responsibility here?
Well, this is how. This is where the rubber meets the road. The standards lay out these super clear metrics. First, they ask what percentage of your revenue comes from products with these chemicals in them. Just tell us the number. Second, they want to know about the process. How are you actually managing this stuff? And third, they flip it around and ask, okay, how much of your revenue comes from products that are designed to be better?
And that last part is so important. That solution-focused approach is what's known as green chemistry. So you see, the standards aren't just about pointing fingers for the bad stuff. They're also about highlighting and letting us see when companies are being innovative and designing safer products right from the get-go. It's about finding a way out of the problem.
But chemicals are just one piece of the puzzle, right? I mean, for a bottle of shampoo, sustainability is way bigger than just what's inside. And the SASB standards totally get that. They look at a much wider range of impacts. Like, for instance, water. It's a huge one for this industry. Think about it. Water is often the main ingredient in the product, and you need a ton of it to make the product in the first place. So yeah, how a company uses water is a pretty big deal.
So again, there's a specific metric for it. The standard asks companies to report how much water they use. But, and this is the critical part, it also asks them where they're using it. Specifically, what percentage is being used in areas that are already under high water stress. Because look, using a gallon of water in a place with plenty of rain is totally different from using that same gallon in the middle of a drought. That one detail tells you so much about their risk.
And then, of course, there's the packaging. The plastic bottle, the cardboard box, the shrink wrap, it's a huge part of the environmental story for these products, from how it's made to where it ends up.
And you guessed it, there's a metric for that too. Companies have to report on their packaging, breaking it down into two key things. First, what's it made from? Is it recycled? Is it renewable? And second, what happens to it afterwards? Can it be recycled, reused, or composted? Pretty straightforward, right?
Okay, let's zoom back out for a second.
Why does any of this matter? Why go into all this detail? Well, it boils down to one simple idea. Transparency creates accountability. When every company has to measure and report on the same things in the same way, there's nowhere to hide.
And look, this isn't just about feeling good. It's about being smart. There's a great line in the source material that basically says, the companies that get ahead of these issues, the ones that are honest about it, they're the ones that are going to have a competitive advantage. It's just good business.
So at the end of the day, all this data takes sustainability from being some fuzzy marketing buzzword and turns it into something you can actually compare. It lets investors make better choices, and it lets us see which companies are just talking and which ones are actually walking the walk.
It's really like someone finally turned on the lights. We now have a common language to talk about this stuff. We can actually see what's going on. So now that you know what this nutritional label for sustainability can look like, the real question is, will you start looking for the companies that are actually publishing it?